All right. So all the things that you're going to be seeing today, you don't need to have physical splats for. So you can use them with a computer or with a iPad. You don't need to have splats. If you've got splats, that's great, but you don't need them. So like I just mentioned, you're going to need an iPad or a laptop with a Chrome browser, and internet access, and you need to have an unruly attitude because we're going to be pretty goofy about all this. The link to our app is right up here on the screen. It's just app.unruly-studios.com. You can also download the app if you just search for Unruly Splats. If you'd like to, you're welcome to play around with us as we go through today. We're going to be playing some games together live, but you don't need to have the app open in order to play. So you can just play along with us. And we've got some instructions for signing into the app. So make sure to keep this in mind if this is your first time logging in. All right. So just a brief overview of Unruly Fitness. So this is the first time that we've done specifically a fitness pack that doesn't require specific splats. A lot of times, almost all of our things are very high energy and very high activity, but you were stomping on splats or going and running on splats. This time you don't need to do that. The first activity is in 3 parts. The first part focuses on stopwatches and timers, and then you combine the two in the last part for building your own circuit, which combines the stopwatches and the timers together. And then for activity 2, it is basically just repurposing all of that code into making fun games. So we've got 3 games that we're going to go over all of them today. But found art, there's an exercise generator, and there's a robot dance generator as well. All right. So Ryan, I'm going to let you take it away. We're going to be hopping over into our web app as well. Again, all of this is recorded, so you'll have access to this later. You also will have access to this pack, so you're going to see a lot of code on the screen. Again, totally okay, but feel free to chat us if you've got any questions. Take it away, Ryan.
All right. Yeah, so I'm going to be starting with the web app, just like we were talking about. Yep. So this is what you get when you start with app-unrulystudios.com. I'm going to pick student because I usually pick student, and I'll make a new profile. This is just a little icon to help your profile have its own look. I figured this one's appropriate for today. We can go with and make a new profile. So this is the web interface. This looks very much like the app. If you're running the app on the iPad or an Android device, I've built games on iPads. We've done a lot with the web app, especially with the virtual splats. At the top left, this selects how many splats you're using for your game. Some of the parts of this activity use 1 or 2. The rest use 3 or 4. In person, the max at the moment is 6 splats, so that's your most splats together. With the virtual ones, it's nice being able to use 6 splats whenever you want. This is your little stopwatch interface. When you're running the stopwatch using some of the blocks in the code, this little stopwatch will count up and show you what your time is. We'll use that a little bit later, and you could use that to record your time for activities. Run button is pretty self-explanatory. Once you build your code out in the field over here, the run button will start the code, and depending on how you have it built, start from the beginning or start when you press one of the splats. These function just like splats do in real life. So each one of these icons on the left, if you have code that applies to a splat being pressed or released, will function just like when you click on these splats here, as if you're pressing on a physical splat in real life. These are really useful. The lights up the same way a normal splat will light up and give you the same sort of feedback. So you can debug your code if you're using real life splats, or in our case, you can use them just like you're using your virtual splats. On the right-hand side are all the useful user tray parts. This is the device volume and just some contact information. This is where you can see how many times you've hit splats, how many tutorials you've done, how many examples you've made. And these are the most important parts of our right-hand tray here. Create a project is where we're going to be importing code to talk about our games. You can also start a blank project or save your current project there. If you save your project in the app, it'll save it for you. You just want to give it a nice name. This is also where you'd export. When you export your project, it'll save it as a text file. So that little text file you can save to your computer and pass on to somebody else, submit as a answer to a test or whatever you need to. and then other users can import them using that first portion, the create a project. And there's a bunch of different examples, tutorials, and challenges which evolve, and always more being added, and they're a lot of fun. Down here is undo and redo if you do something that you're not sure of, or if you want to get some blocks back that you maybe deleted. And then this upside down trash can is to clear your screen. And I just realized I lost my chat. Do we need to stop and go back over anything, or do you want to start with activity 1-1?
I think we're good to go. Let's start going with the first activity and the first part of the first activity.
So with this pack, we built it a little bit differently than we've built our previous activity packs, where it builds on itself from a very simple place. So activity 1, activity 2, and activity 3.
Well, part 1, part 2, and part 3.
Yes, activity 1, part 1, activity 1, part 2, and activity 1, part 3. They all build up to a series of blocks that we'll use for the rest of the activity 2. So I'm going to start by importing my project.
Now, if you had already loaded, Ryan, it would already be in your app?
Correct. So if I had built this game ahead of time and hit save, it would be sitting on the side of that tray right there. In my case, it brings up my downloads folder, and I'm just going to click my text file, and it imports the blocks that we need for activity 1, part 1. So this is a very, it's a little slow while it's broadcasting. So we built this function just to do a simple countdown from 10. So this was audible feedback to give you an idea how many of a certain exercise activity you can do in 10 seconds. So the function is called count from 10. It just says 10, 9, 8, all the way down through 1, and gives you a second delay in between them. When you use that in conjunction with some whistles, you have a good, when you start the program,
10.
It will sit
9,
and go from 10 to 1,
8,
and give you a nice
7,
bit of feedback and some
6,
motivation to get as many as you can.
5, 4, 3.
So from 1-1, we take this count from 10, and we put it aside for one part here. I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen. We'll remember that exists. I'm going to go ahead and pull up activity 1, part 2, which is our stopwatch.
And if you were going through this pack, Ryan, you would be naturally one.
Right.
Weird sounds.
Yeah. So activity 1, part 1, we've disabled those blocks on the right-hand side or the left-hand side here. Activity 1, part 2, we're using the stopwatch block. So inside all of these different colors of trays are different blocks. And if you haven't played too much with the virtual or with the program in general, you pull out blocks from the side and you align them so that they all run in order. With this part 2, we're using this stopwatch block, which will actually cause this stopwatch up here to start running. And it'll let us know if we get to 30 seconds, then we've taken too long doing our exercises. The point of 1-1 is to see how many of a certain exercise you can do in 10 seconds. 1-2 is how quickly you can do a series of exercises.
How many you can do.
That's the opposite. So with this stopwatch function, with these stopwatch blocks, when you press splat 1, it'll start the stopwatch. Start flashing colors and start running the stopwatch for you. So you've got 30 seconds. When the code gets to 30 seconds, it'll make everything red and say, hey, you took too long. Once you're done, our when splat 2 press block will stop the stopwatch and give you 10 seconds to write down your time. So in the pack, we have a lot of nice ways to write down your time and improve day by day. Yep, there's the whistle going off. So inside of 30 seconds, you can press the splat 2 and stop the timer and write down your time for how quickly.
So I see that you've got 4 splats on the side of the screen, Ryan. How
Yeah,
do you change that to just be 2? Because it looks like our program is only using 2 splats.
that's a good point. So this one, we would come over here, click the 2 splats to knock it down to 2 splats.
And also in this one, it looks like you press on splat 1 to start your stopwatch and splat 2 to stop your stopwatch. Do you ever need to press the run button?
I think you can do it either way. So it's just force a habit for me to hit the run button before I start playing the game. But
You should always do it. But yes, you don't.
yes, you don't actually have to hit the run button. So this is all when splat press. So just using the virtual splats on the side here controls the game just the same. That's a good point.
I just want to mention 2 real quick things. We disabled the countdown instead of throwing it away because, like Ryan said, this is a really great code that we're going to keep building on and adapting. And so disabling the code keeps it to the side, and you can choose to use it whether for any particular activity. And also, like, there is a lag right now since I think we're broadcasting to quite a few people, but normally it should run very smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be running a little bit better at the moment. Maybe it was just a high network traffic right after work.
Awesome. So let's see what it looks like for the third part.
Just quickly in the chat. So it's right click or long press is enable or disable.
Great.
And you can do that for any number of blocks anywhere in the code. So if you're testing or if you want to save something for later, you can unsnap them, right click disable, and they'll still stay put, but you can use them later.
And if you want to disable a whole, like the whole stack, always click on the most outermost thing to disable it. And then it'll hide the whole thing.
Very useful. So I'm going to go ahead and clear all of my blocks again because our part 3 has all the blocks we need in it. There we go. So this is where we combine both part 1 and part 2 to make a set of tools for a fitness circuit. So you both have your countdown from 10 as well as your stopwatch at the same time. And you can use them both to switch back and forth between different ways of tracking yourself and progressing with your exercises. So this is 3 splats. We have splat 1, splat 2, and splat 3. Switch that on so we have all 3 on the left-hand side. The easiest one is when splat 3 pressed, we're using our count from 10 function again. So it does the exact same thing that it was doing in our first part. Press that splat and you have your countdown from 10. When you're not using your countdown from 10, you now have your stopwatch at the same time. So you can switch, do one activity with your stopwatch, and then do the next activity with your countdown from 10.
Do you mind starting the stopwatch for us really quick?
Sure. So a lot of this code in the middle is solely dedicated to making these lights flash the way that they do. This stopwatch set of blocks right here is a feedback part of the code. It's not potentially necessary, but it gives you a good indicator of how the code is running and that it's still working the way you want it to.
Awesome.
And then you have your 10 seconds to write down your time. And then you're good to go. And the next one, you can use your splat 3 and get your countdown, count from 10.
Oh, can I point out that you can also manipulate the numbers within the blocks. And so if you decide you want more than 30 seconds, you can set it to whatever amount you're comfortable with. And the same with the delay and which splat like emits what sound and what color. It's all very adaptable.
Good point. So especially for the amount of time to write down your times or your number of exercises, you might need less time, you might need more time. You can always change it.
Yeah. Yes.
Why is there a 5-second delay in the count from 10 function?
That was to give you a chance to reset. So once the count from 10 goes to 1, it just gives you a little bit of breather at the end. We found in testing that some devices, the timing can be a little bit shifted. So it's maybe not a full second. It could be a second and a half. So that little delay by 5 both lets the code catch up at the end and gives you a second to stop and write down how many activity you've done after your countdown.
Great. All right, so let's switch back to my screen. So what we all just went over, these are all the blocks that you're going to use during the full activity. So that includes part 1, part 2, and part 3. This is the final code that you'll come out with, which is the combination of both the stopwatch and the countdown. And once you've got the final code on 1-3, we actually have some great resources for helping you build your circuits and helping students come up with their own circuits. They're picking their own exercises in this activity. So the computer's not like randomly generating a number or something, but you can do that if you'd like. So you can have the splat light up a random color and then pick exercises based off of this list. We also have demonstration videos, which are really awesome. It just shows off each one of the exercises and what you can do with them. Is it really laggy?
Gets the point across.
And we do have a page like this at the end of each of our, at the end of each of the games. So for 1-3 and then also for each of the 3 games that are in activity 2. So great to help you take note and figure out what am I doing with this code. Again, you don't have to use these exercises, but it can be really helpful, especially if students need a place to start to pick their exercises. Anything else on this before we move on to activity 2?
I just want to point out that in the exercises chart, the reason why there are colors and animals is because these are the colors that the splat can emit, and these are the animal sounds that it makes. And so the animal sounds and the colors will directly tie into part 2 of the pack. And we just wanted to sort of introduce it in the beginning and also introduce an element of sort of zaniness and just fun. And also you get to find out where the animal lives, which is always fun.
Great. I also find it really helpful, especially for younger students, to find different ways to make choices. I think more ways you can make choices, the better. Awesome. So did also want to point out, here's an image of the log. There, it is linked at the top of, I think, activity 1. And then we also have a full page of the log as well. From the link, you can actually type directly in it. So that's something to point out to your students as well. All right. I'm going to turn this over to Turan. And this is, we're going to be talking about activity 2. So basically adapting all the code that you just saw in activity 1 and turning it into some games.
So yeah, like Emily and Ryan said, part 1 or activity 1 is all about building the code. And then activity 2 is all about reverse engineering it and adapting it to play different games. And so we're always thinking of ways to make splats interdisciplinary. And we decided we wanted an art activity for kids who really like being creative, and they can work in fitness while also getting to build something and think creatively. So it's a found art sculpture activity, and it's rooted in actual art practices. Found art sculpture was made, it was popularized by Duchamp, and a lot of contemporary artists still practice it. And so if you're teaching art to your students, you can turn it into a whole separate lesson connected to splats. And the way this lesson works is you have the kids adapt the code so that it lights up a random color. And that color determines what random object you find in whatever environment you're in. If you're at home or at school, you have to find an object in a short amount of time that matches the color that lit up on your splat. And after the splat has run through its loop, which you can set the number of loops it does as well, and that determines the amount of objects you have to gather. You take all your gathered objects and you have to create a sculpture very spontaneously. And it's a really fun sort of icebreaker. It can be a great morning activity. And it's definitely something that we wanted to make sure kids could do at home and not feel left out, because everyone has something that's red. Everyone can have something that's yellow. And it doesn't have to be something you purchase, and everyone gets to be creative and show different strengths through splats. So the way it works, yeah, you hear a drum roll. During the drum roll, that means the splat is choosing the color. And as soon as you hear,
Sorry to interrupt you, Turan. I'm going to switch over to the web app, and I'm going to do this while you're talking. Keep going. Just like
okay. So you're going to hear a drum roll, and these are, again, what's so great about Splats is you can change it to any sound, any color you want. And so we chose drum roll and things that we felt made sense for the project, but like everyone who's ever taught a child, which I've had the joy of doing, like, you know that their randomness is like so lovely. And so it's amazing to see what they come up with. They're going to come up with like fart noises and robot noises. And what's great is like they get to explore and have fun while still meeting the objective of the lesson. So when you hear that drum roll, that means you got to run off and find an object. The drum roll means it's choosing a color, and as soon as you hear a symbol crash, that means you got to run and find an object that matches the color of your splat.
Not going to interrupt you, and now I'm going to press the run button.
10, 9, 8, 7,
Not yet.
6,
Hold on.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the countdown is to let you know, like, you need to hustle back because your splat's going to change its color again. So you can set the time to be a lightning round where everyone has to be very fast, or, you know, you can adapt it for students who maybe like are disabled, or students who like to really walk. You always have that one kid who just walks everywhere. And so you can adapt it, and that's really great. And everyone is going to end up with a project that they can feel good about.
So you might have noticed that it automatically started running again. Why was that? So while you were talking, like our program already started again. So it looks like we had our delay, and then it automatically repeats, I guess, like what you were just saying to him.
That's because we use the repeat block. And so for sculpture, we're recommending that kids use several objects. You can set the amount of objects, and therefore you can use the repeat block to basically determine how many times your program is going to loop. And so it's going to choose a random color 5 times.
Awesome. That's great. So should we do this together?
Yes, I get very excited about this.
Everyone watching to join us too. I know we can't see you, but feel free to take a photo and email it to us at the end or post it on Twitter. We want to see your art sculptures. So join in with us.
So one more time, I do want to go over the rules really quickly. One last time. So you're going to hear a drum roll. When you hear the symbol, that means that you're going to go pick an object that matches the color of the splats that are going to be on the screen. Like Tran said, you're building a sculpture, so keep in mind what all you're going to be doing. When you hear the countdown, you need to come back. And the number of objects is going to match the number in our repeat block. So in this example, we have it set to 5 objects. Do you want to keep it at 5 2, Ann, or should we change it?
I think 5 is fine, yeah.
Okay.
Especially if we do like a lightning round. We're going pretty quickly.
Lightning round, yes. So once you have all of your objects, you're going to make your piece. So if you do, we'll share out our pieces that we make. But if you share them on Twitter, you need to have a title. So make sure to think of the title for your art piece.
Please tag us.
All right. So I'm going to go back to our web app.
I think for us, we should probably knock that delay back a little bit, just so we have a little less time to find our items.
Yep. All right. Want to walk me through how to do that, Ryan?
Sure. I think we probably don't need to do much more than removing that delay of 5 seconds at the end of the code. We already have our 10-second countdown, count from 10 function. So I think that delay 5 seconds block is maybe not needed.
So we only have 10 seconds to grab an object.
It's 10 plus that little extra delay at the end of the function. So it's more like 12.
All right. Tran, do you think that's enough time for you?
Yeah, we'll be okay.
Okay.
I preemptively gathered some objects near me.
Oh yes, we've thoroughly cheated already, so it's fine.
All right. So I'm going to press run, and let's do this. All right. I'm going to put on my mask, though, because I am in a public space, and I might have to go back outside. All right.
10,
Light
9,
blue.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9,
Purple.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ten, 9,
Oh,
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ten,
Oh no!
no.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I have antacids.
Aha!
10, 9,
Purple again?
8,
No.
7, 6,
Oh, I don't know if I have another purple.
4, 3, 2, 1.
It's a spool of yarn or thread.
Various purple thing.
So let's take
Find another purple.
around a minute to assemble. Mine is going to be quite challenging. So
It was light blue, blue, purple, blue, purple, right?
there were two purples, 3 blues.
That's what I thought.
All right, I did it. it's not good.
Okay, I've completed. All right, who wants to show theirs off with their title?
All right, I got it. Splat Voyage.
Sorry, you'll see what Lauren's creation is in a second. Keep going. Let's hear your creation. That was so rude. I'm so sorry. You still there?
Yeah, Ryan, what is it?
Did you?
It's called
This was
Splat's Voyage.
Splat Voyage.
Wow, what objects you got there?
So Splat, a small 3D printed purple boat, because everyone has those on their desk. A blue eyeglass cleaner, a blue 3D printed strut thing, and then purple 3D printer filament, because that's what's on my desk.
That's awesome. All right, and your title again was
Splat Voyage.
Flat Voyage. All right, Tim, let's see yours.
Mine is called Tower of Shame. It is it is a book and an antacid and a little it's interactive because then the yarn jumps. The little thread spoolie guy.
Very nice. Tower of Shame.
Yeah.
All right, Lauren, I think you have to go next.
So, yeah, I was looking for a purple thing for a really long time, and I remembered that
Oh, you're right.
the suitcase that we travel at Unruly is purple. So, it's basically just a suitcase with a bunch of stuff piled on top. And I'm going to call it Backpacker. Which I've done a lot better at. Usually my suitcase is much smaller than this, but
All right. Mine is not nearly as creative, but I have this collapsed assemblage. It includes a popcorn bag that is probably a year old, a little blue stamp, a geode, and a pen that was propped up like this.
You just had a geode?
And will always be a geologist at heart. There we go. And the title of this is going to be a rocky adventure. All right. So let's go on to the second activity. That was so much fun. We would love to see what you all make. So please share them with us. We have a lot of fun doing these things.
I'm going to look at all of them. I live for this.
All right. So again, this was the code that Tuan went over. All right.
Okay, so then we have the movement challenge because we wanted to sort of like circle back to the movements that we introduced in activity 1. So in this one, you adapt the code so that the splat chooses the exercise for you rather than before when you chose how many of a thing I can do. So in this case, it chooses for you, and again, it goes in the loop. And so you're going to be doing the way we set up the code, 5 activities in a row. But again, you can adapt this. And this is something you can do at home. You can do it on the spot. And it's the same exercises from before.
Let me pop on over. Show on that one.
Yeah.
So this one is 2. I'm going to load it up.
This is also where the animal sounds come into play. So when the program starts, you can see that the repeat block is also there again. So you're doing 5 activities in a row. You can change that just depending on your time and your students. And the referee whistle plays, letting you know that the program has started. There's a slight delay, and then you're going to hear a random animal noise. And then we have a chart that tells you which animal noise correlates to which exercise. And then the students will then do that exercise within like a limited amount of time. The countdown lets them know they should start wrapping up. And then they're going to get a cheer. And then it'll delay, stopwatch resets, and the program starts over again with a different animal sound, or possibly the same one because it's all random.
So let's see how that sounds.
Are you gonna?
So that's a chicken. That means we need to be doing jumping jacks.
10, 9, 8, 7,
You're doing your jumping jacks.
3, 2, 1.
And this would be a great movement break if you're in between like lessons and you just want the kids, like if they've been standing around a lot or sitting a lot, this is just like, especially if you build this into a routine and they'll know exactly what to do without like an explainer beforehand. Then you just do your quick exercise and then you move on.
Do you want to lead us through a really quick routine? I think Lauren and I would really much benefit from some exercise. I don't know about you and Ryan.
I promised the people that we would do it live on camera, so we gotta follow through. And we definitely encourage everybody at home to do it too. We can't see you, but we'll know if you don't do it.
I'll know.
So I can run it off of my screen. Tuan, do you want to keep it at 5 exercises, or do you want to shorten it? Please don't make it long.
And do you mind yelling out, or somebody can yell out what the actual exercise is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tuan, do you mind doing that?
I don't have the chart handy.
I can do it. I'll be the manager.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Tuan, this means now you need to exercise.
Okay.
All right. So did you say you wanted to keep it at 5, or did you?
Just change it to 2.
2? Okay.
Yeah, we'll demonstrate 2. And some of them involve being on the floor, so you might not see those.
So
Yeah.
I will press run, and then I will quickly yell out what it does. Are we ready?
Okay.
All right.
This is how we're wearing heels today.
So horse.
That
Whatever.
was the first. Air punches. Go.
10, 9, 8, 7,
Why do you have to do it?
3, 2, 1.
I think he's going to the red whistle.
I love the cheer at the end. The cheer is always my favorite.
What was that?
That might have been a sheep.
Yeah.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Sorry, guys. Mission accomplished.
Alrighty. Thank you for leading us through that. All right, so we are on to our last thing. So few things I just wanted to point out on this one. The computer picks your exercises, that's the main difference. And you don't know what's coming next. So you have a few seconds to take a look at the table and see what your exercises are. All right.
Are you out of breath?
Yes. I was taking those burpees really seriously. All right. How to dance like a robot. Ryan, want to take us through it?
So my connection is a little spotty, so somebody else might want to take over.
Okay. I can quickly walk us through this. So this is really similar to the last exercise that we did, but instead of doing using randomness to assign different exercises, you're doing it with dance moves. So I'll quickly show you the video. So got all the dance moves, show you what they do. In this one, you will know what all of the movements are going to be ahead of time. So it's actually just going to create a routine for you. And so we're just going to really quickly make a routine and look up what our dance moves would be. And then you can come back to the video and see what your dance moves are in practice. So let's hop right back over. So I'm just going to delete this. Mine I have created on here. I'm going to load. All right. So for this one, we have a lot of different sounds and feedback that you're going to be hearing. Again, that's just to you're dancing like a robot. So that's what a lot of those moves are. Again, you're building off of the same exact code that you started off with at the part 3 of the first activity. But we are using 4 splats because we have 4 dance moves that are going to be appearing on each one. And when we press run, we're just going to watch the sequence and see what colors we get. And then we'll come back to the slides and see what dance moves we're going to be doing. We're not going to dance on screen. You don't want to see that. So we got cyan, pink, orange, and yellow.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. So again, the code really similar to what we did before. We are going to now look at our different colors and see what dance moves we're going to do. So it looks like our first one is cyan. So that one is power on. So we would go back to our video and see what does power on do. Our second one, we're going to see down here, is pink. Hop back over. Pink is the redo dance move. Orange. For orange, we're going to do reboot. And we've got gold. Gold is left click. So we'll have to publish our routines and see if any of you want to dance to our routine that we just made.
Oh, and I want to point out that in the video, the moves are in the same order as the list, starting from the top.
Awesome. Great. Again, the computer builds your routine and you know all your dance moves before beginning. And that is the last part of activity 2. We would love to open this up for questions. Any questions you've got, feel free to let us know.
Write us in the chat. I also put in, Emily, a few pre-questions that people had sent to me ahead of time in the form. So Feel free to write your questions in the chat, guys, but if you don't have any, then we'll just go through the list. So that you guys asked before.
I'm going to go through those next questions. So one we got submitted was, with the recommended physical splats you need for P classes of 50 and STEM classes of 30. So it really depends on what you want to do with your physical splats. It's going to be challenging to use 12 splats, which is our starting for our classroom sets. For 50 students, I would likely say that you would need a little bit more, but you could play full class games with the 12. So my favorites are red light, green light, four corners, splat tag, relay races, capture
Adventure splats.
Adventure splats, yes. All sorts of things that you can do with 50. For 30 students, 12 should be okay. You're going to be, what I always recommend to get the most out of your spots is have students code and then do all that on their devices in groups. And then when they're ready to play, go get the physical spots. Good question.
Somebody asked, are the activity packs already in our user profile or will those be emailed to us? Is there a code that says exercise out loud instead of just the question?
I can take both. This activity pack will be going up on our website. I believe Lauren will also email it out to you.
I will.
And then for saying the exercise out loud, we use animal noises. We don't have a version that actually says it out loud. Our speech to text right now in the current version of our app actually only says numbers, but that's a feature that's coming soon. So in the next version of our app, make sure to give it a try.
If they did the iPad app, though, could
You
they
could
do a voice recording?
You could record your own sound, correct?
Yeah.
But we used the say block in there, so play around the say block. You would just need to swap out that say block and instead use a sound block and use a recording. But you could totally do that too. There's all sorts of other ways to use randomness too. So I think a lot of times gyms can be quite noisy. You can always swap those out for colors too. So feel free to do that as well.
Good question. We've got two more questions.
Got it. Wow, I just noticed my hair edge
It's
is exercised. Is there a way for students to send me code to run on the physical splat so I could show them remotely? Yes. So Ryan showed you that a little bit earlier. He was always pulling up files, and a lot of our team actually uses our programs in that way. But we also have a guide that's like a splatting without splats guide that walks through step by step for you and for your students how to download programs, specifically on Chromebooks. On iPads, unfortunately, you can't download your program, so make sure to do it on a Chromebook.
I said the alternative, somebody asked this question earlier. The alternative on an iPad, if you want to have students send you their code, is to use the screen recording feature on an iPad. That's what one of our educators did when he was sending us the musical splats code for Crash to dance to. They did screen recordings, and then he just and they played it. So he could see.
Totally.
Any other questions?
Mine's turning on the splat.
It slipped.
Last question that we've got is, does our app run on a smartphone? Unfortunately not. It is quite too small.
So a Chromebook or a laptop with a Chrome browser for our web app or an iPad, you don't even have access to the internet to do the app like that. So the internet don't want the app, but once it's done, then you don't. Okay. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. Does anyone have any last questions? If you do, throw it in the chat. If you haven't seen our Splatting Without Splats guide and you'd like it, if you just throw your email in the chat, then I can be sure to send that to you right after this recording or webinar is over. And then I will definitely send out the activity pack and the recording to this webinar to everybody who registered. So don't worry if you want to see us looking silly doing burpees again, you can see it all over again. Yeah, awesome. So thanks so much for joining. I think unless any of you guys have anything else to add, that's everything. But this was super fun. Thanks, Joanne and Ryan and Emily for putting this on. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.